Right, Dream Team, how we doing?
Thanks,
Very good, thank you. Lovely weather out there. Summer is over. Autumn has begun. Lovely. Good for the garden, though. Good for the garden, you know.
Yeah, you had 2 days of Costa del Mumbles.
We have, yeah. No, exactly. Or as Al Wing calls it, Costa del Swansea calls it.
Yeah. Well, Toby, you've had a bit of a break. What have you been up to and how are the squads at the moment?
I've been on holiday. No, I haven't. I haven't at all. No, what have we been up to? So we were pretty banged up actually after the Dragons, to be fair. So we've used it as an opportunity to freshen a lot of the boys up. We've got a couple of boys back from injury, so Webby and Steve Meyer are back training and playing. So that's good for us and good for everyone concerned. Yeah, and we've still got a few bumps and bruises kicking around. So yeah, that's what we've been up to. Looking to finish the season strongly.
Way results have fallen. 2 good wins. You could still make the final. Is that the aim now?
Our aim is, and again, the growth of the team's understanding what we have to do in the very next step. As boring it is for you, one game at a time, as every coach will tell you. But with a group it's learning about itself and a team that's learning about itself, and lots of changes in it, all we can look forward is one session at a time, ready for one game at a time, and that's what we'll do.
The jeopardy element, if you do win against Connacht, then you're obviously playing the leaders in the final game.
Yeah, and then that'll be the final before the final, so that'll be exciting. But yeah, we know going to Connacht, we went there and obviously performed well early in the year, and in a really good game actually for both sides. I think it's going to, well, weather permitting, wind permitting, as it is in Connacht often. I think you've got two teams that really want to be positive. I know Andy Friend well. I know what his teams represent, and yeah, it should be a good spectacle, I think.
Will your 2 Lions, Alan and Jones and Justin Tippett, be involved this weekend, Toby?
We've talked about that with them. They are obviously desperate to play. I have to think about protecting them from themselves a little bit. They played a considerable amount of the derby games, so we'll make that decision later, sort of tomorrow. They've trained, they've been involved, so we'll have to see. It's not a question of me not wanting them to play, or them not wanting to play. It's a question of just doing what's right for them and for the Ospreys.
This will be the final weekend they're available, is it right? Because they go to Jersey the following weekend.
That's correct, yeah. So,
yeah.
So part of that, you sort of stole my thunder a little bit. Is, if we're going to be positive, we're going to have to do this without them anyway. And part of the growth of this group is doing things without them and being reliant always on, the very best. You saw some of the fixtures in the Six Nations window, for example, where we've, won 4 games away from home and bits and pieces. We've done that predominantly, or on occasions without them and with them. So that's, part of the growth of the group, getting greater strength and depth.
And Ruiz Webb and Stephen Milo available this weekend in time?
They are, yes.
Okay. Another person great to see today, Toby, Gareth Anscombe in training, the video put out by the Ospreys. What is his situation? How is he at the moment?
He's still a way off, to be fair. He's doing parts of training. He's obviously not in the contact. We're ticking, as I said to you previously, we're ticking boxes off as we go. Part of that is how Gareth feels, how he responds. We know that we're sort of setting him up ready for a big year next year, which is exciting. But it's great to see him out on there, and the more we can get into him, I don't mean just physically, but the more of the understanding of where we are and what we're trying to do, it only bodes well for him and for us.
So you're looking for him to perhaps hit the ground running, hopefully next season, whenever that starts, late September?
Yeah, I mean, our pre-season will start end of July. It'll be sort of 5 weeks or whatever they'll close the season, so it depends where we finish. There's individual cases for everybody. The amount of time that he's had off, we're pleased to see him out. Psychologically, it's brilliant for him. It's good for Welsh rugby. It's good for everyone. And a big, solid pre-season will set him up nicely to kick on.
Last week, Toby, not nicer coaches, you had to announce the players who were leaving the region.
Yep.
Scott Williams would be one of those. He was obviously, he's had a difficult year in terms of injuries. How difficult a decision was that?
Oh, they're always difficult decisions, and unfortunately, there's a multitude of reasons. I'm not going to dwell on an individual case as you would expect, but there's all those things that you talk about. There's availability, there's injury profile, there's cost, there's there's a lot of really really good players here at the Ospreys, and you've got to make the best fit. And it's a really difficult time for you. We've spoken about it this year about making sure we finish in that strong. We finish this year strongly because it's the last time that this group will be together for these next couple of weeks. So, and everyone's part of that. Everyone that is leaving. So it's unfortunate, but unfortunately, professional sport requires hard decisions and difficult decisions, and they're not made lightly. And but the only constant in professional sport is change, and we've got to navigate the best we can and as respectfully as we can.
I know budgets are unsure for next season, but are you looking at any more coming in?
Maybe, yeah. We obviously want to try and make ourselves as robust as we can. We've got a couple of bits and pieces in the pipeline. We've got, because professional sport and with the best laid plans, you have to be agile and flexible. For example, we hadn't legislated for Scott Otten, for example. So we need to make sure that when you go into the market expecting not to buy a hooker and you've got to make that decision at sort of end of March, start of April, or that's a much more difficult decision if you're trying to facilitate that in September. So we're obviously looking for the best candidates possible. I think we've got one of them, an exciting one. Those are the sort of things of where we are, and just try and squeeze as much quality into the remaining budget that we've got.
Is Alex Cuthbert one of those possibilities?
I couldn't possibly say, could I? No. As I said, if you look at, when we talk about injury, we know that George is not around for a bit. We know that the sort of team we want to be. We know the back three players are important to this team. You look at the quality we've got with people like Matt Prothero, Dan Evans, got some good youngsters in there. Max Nagy, you saw score a try against the Dragons. Keelan Giles, etc. We've got it's an important position for us, and having such a prized asset as George not being around, it's obvious that we'll certainly look into the market for to try and give us greater strength in depth.
Wales Grand Slam winner, Lions Test scorer. He's not got no bad CV, is he?
George? George's got a good CV, yeah.
Very good. So is Alex Cuthbert?
I hadn't looked into it, to be fair. So we'll wait and see.
If I could just ask about Will Griffiths as well, we're going to speak to him shortly. He just seems to have been a bit of a breakthrough year for him, really. I know he's been around for a few years, but this year's really come on. What do you like about his game, and what improvements have you seen in him?
Well, he obviously fits the my one of my sort of mantra policies, if you like, of I'm going to bring people through, and you have to knock the rough edges off people. And you see with a lot of those players that you've spoken to me about before, Will being another one of them, that if you give people opportunity, they grow much quicker. And he has certainly grabbed the mantra, for sure. He's a very smart footballer, He's a very smart footballer. He understands the game, so he's got good game understanding, and that's why, as a effectively a lock that plays in the back row, he obviously brings bigger physical presence. And going into competitions that have South African teams in it, and we play in Europe with big teams, you need some physicality and some size around that. And that was one of the things that struck me about him, that he can bring that, like Reece Davis and the young players. And the biggest compliment that they've been given is, they've been brought into as wide a group into the Welsh, set up to have a look at them and get fitness tested, which is a nice, accolade, and almost the I suppose the reward for what a good season that he's had.
And where is the growth in him then? Just finally from you, where do you see the growth in his game?
Well, again, he has to understand, for himself around, what it takes to perform at the optimum level. Very similar to a lot of young players. What it takes, you have to do individually to put yourself, in that position week in and week out. Because that mental resilience and that toughness and playing when you don't feel 100%, that's all part of the growth. The scar tissue that you need, to play and play consistently. And as you got through that, there'll be a few ups and downs, as with all players. But what I'm most impressed about is the level of consistency that he brings. The rest of it is about him imposing himself on the game. He has good visibility. He's got good skills in wide channels. You saw that he had a couple of assists in the European campaign at home. So he can play in wide channels, and obviously it brings. We've got a good set piece, good drive, good maul, good scrum. He obviously adds to the set piece fundamentals of what we've got. So yeah, it's basically just keep improving on what his points of difference are.
For me, going back to Gareth, you touched on it briefly, but could you just expand on how good it must be for him mentally, even if it is just to be involved running, passing a ball? I know he's not taking contact and stuff, but it's a significant step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, for any person that's had the thing that they love to do the most taken away from them, there's a massive, psychological hole for sure. So to see that, that opportunity come back to you, it's like a massive adrenaline rush, for sure. For him, it has a rub-off effect on the team. And you see a few things and it reminds you what you're missing. So from that point of view, that's really exciting, and hopefully it's on and up from here.